The pulse of Las Vegas was a relentless, intoxicating drumbeat, a vibrant symphony orchestrated by a million twinkling lights, the rhythmic clatter of slot machines, and the distant, pulsating bass lines from 100 nightclubs. It was a city that never slept, a shimmering oasis of fantasy and excess, where dreams were pursued with audacious abandon and fortunes were won and lost in the blink of an eye. But tonight, beneath the colossal, dazzling marquee of the legendary Stardust Casino, a different kind of silence had begun to seep in a cold, creeping void that threatened to swallow the very essence of its flamboyant spirit. Laughter felt hollow, the music seemed to lose its customary verve, and an insidious anxiety was slowly, steadily, taking root. Cassandra, Cassie Monroe, the undisputed, radiant queen of the celestial siren show, the magnetic force whose every high kick and dazzling smile commanded the rapt attention of thousands, had simply vanished. Her dressing room, usually a vibrant vortex of controlled chaos, a glorious explosion of discarded feathers, shimmering sequins, stray rhinestones, and the intoxicating, mingling scents of hairspray, stage makeup, and expensive French perfume was now eerily, profoundly still. It was a tableau of suspended animation, a poignant echo of the life that had abruptly ceased within its velvet-draped walls. A single, perfect crimson rose, its petals beginning to curl and brown at the edges, lay almost ceremoniously on her ornate vanity table, a stark and heartbreaking contrast to the vibrant, effervescent energy that usually pulsed within these four walls. On a nearby chair, a half-read script for a new routine lay open, its pages unturned. A delicate diamond necklace, a recent gift Cassie had proudly shown off, was conspicuously absent from its usual velvet stand. Backstage, where the air was typically thick with the buzz of anticipation, the nervous energy of impending performance, and the familiar scent of grease paint, the other showgirls moved like specters. Their usually flawless, painted smiles were strained and brittle. Their eyes, accustomed to the bright glare of the stage, darted nervously, reflecting a communal dread. Whispers, hushed and feverish, snaked through the cramped corridors, each one a fragmented piece of a terrifying puzzle. Tanya, Cassie's understudy and closest confidant, a woman whose own personality was usually as boisterous and unapologetic as Cassie's, clutched a silk robe to her chest as if for dear life. Her robust spirit was reduced to a trembling anxiety. She wouldn't just not show up, Tanya murmured repeatedly to anyone who would listen, her voice thick with a guttural dread that belied her usual strength. Not Cassie. Not for the opening night of the new spectacular. She lived for this. This isn't right. The air grew heavy with unspoken fears, the kind that settled deep in the stomach. The management, particularly the impeccably dressed, perpetually anxious, and visibly sweating Mr. Harrison, the show's producer, was already performing a frantic ballet of damage control. His PR team, a squadron of crisp suits and practiced smiles, meticulously crafted hollow statements about unforeseen personal circumstances and a temporary leave of absence. But even their polished facade couldn't entirely mask the raw, unadulterated fear clinging to Harrison's expensive suit. A missing showgirl wasn't just a personnel issue in this city. It was a potential catastrophe, a gaping crack in the gleaming, flawless armor of fantasy that Las Vegas painstakingly cultivated. Detective Miles Corbin, a man whose weary, intelligent eyes had witnessed the kaleidoscopic best and the brutal worst of Sin City, arrived on the scene with the practiced, almost mechanical efficiency of a seasoned investigator. He was a solid anchor amidst the swirling uncertainty, his quiet authority bringing a fragile, momentary sense of order to the burgeoning chaos. Corbin wasn't one for the glitz and glamour. He preferred the gritty underbelly, the uncomfortable truths that lay hidden beneath the meticulously constructed illusions. He saw through the shimmering costumes, the dazzling lights, and the forced smiles to the raw human drama beneath. He knew that in Vegas, a show wasn't truly over until the final curtain, and for Cassie Monroe, the curtain had just fallen in the most terrifying way imaginable. Corbin began his methodical investigation, a silent, relentless predator hunting for invisible clues in a labyrinth of superficiality. He moved through the backstage area, a world of theatrical magic now tinged with an unsettling grimness. He interviewed the other showgirls, their accounts a confusing tapestry of conflicting emotions: thinly veiled jealousy, genuine admiration, simmering resentment, and heartfelt, profound concern. Some spoke of Cassie's soaring ambition, her unyielding, almost fierce drive to be the best, to conquer every stage she graced. They admired her tenacity, her refusal to settle. Others hinted at a more complex, perhaps troubled, life behind the scenes, whispers of a mysterious new man, a charmer who had captivated Cassie's usually guarded heart, and, some subtly implied, her judgment. The name Dominic surfaced repeatedly, always accompanied by a vague sense of unease, a shiver of disquiet that seemed to ripple through the room each time it was uttered. He was described as impossibly handsome, with a sculpted jawline and eyes that could melt glaciers, a smile that promised the world and more. But beneath the surface charm, a few of the more perceptive showgirls, those who had seen countless men come and go in this city of fleeting passions, felt a subtle chill, a predatory glint in his gaze that belied his smooth, captivating demeanor. "He was too good to be true," one showgirl confessed, her voice barely audible, like a shark in a tailored suit. Tanya, despite her palpable fear and her raw grief, gradually became Corbin's most valuable, albeit reluctant, informant. Her loyalty to Cassie outweighed her terror. "Dominic," she finally confessed, her voice a strained whisper, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. "He was intense." Cassie was completely infatuated. Obsessed, really. She thought he was her ticket out of all this. Tanya gestured vaguely at the opulent, yet stifling environment of the dressing room, the gilded cage she and Cassie had inhabited for years. He promised her the moon, Miles. A life beyond the stage lights, a future she always dreamed of, far away from Vegas. But something about him always felt off, like he was playing a part, even when he wasn't on stage. Tanya recounted snippets of Cassie's conversations, hushed phone calls taken in secluded corners, late-night rendezvous that kept Cassie out until the early hours, and an increasing secrecy that had begun to alienate Cassie from her usual, tight-knit circle. There had been arguments, too hushed but heated words exchanged, overheard through thin dressing room walls, their sharp edges occasionally piercing the usual backstage hum. Money, it seemed, was often at the heart of their disagreements. Dominic, despite his grand pronouncements and lavish promises, never seemed to have any of his own. In fact, Cassie had recently confided in Tanya that she had begun lending him significant sums, always with the promise of repayment that never materialized. Corbin delved into Cassie's personal life with the precision of a surgeon. He sifted through her phone records, her meticulously organized appointment book, and the scattered, intimate remnants of her private world. He found an unsent email, a digital cry for help addressed to Tanya, detailing a growing, visceral unease about Dominic, a terrifying premonition that something wasn't right. "He's too good to be true, Tanya." The email read, its words haunting in their prescience. "And I'm starting to worry what he really wants from me. It's not just love anymore. I think I'm in over my head." This unsent email, a desperate plea for help frozen in time, solidified Corbin's suspicions. Dominic wasn't just a boyfriend. He was a person of interest, a key, potentially dangerous, player in Cassie's sudden and terrifying disappearance. The show, the glittering, magnificent celestial siren, had to go on. That was the unwritten law of Vegas. The curtain rose, the lights flared, and the music swelled, a testament to the illusion and the unyielding resilience of this extraordinary city. Tanya, thrust into the spotlight she had never truly coveted, performed with a heavy heart, her movements a bittersweet echo of Cassie's inimitable grace. But for all the dazzling lights and synchronized routines, an almost palpable undercurrent of sorrow permeated the performance, a silent, profound elegy for the missing showgirl. Corbin watched from the wings, the stark, almost cruel contrast between the vibrant spectacle and the grim reality of his investigation, a jarring reminder of the two vastly different worlds coexisting in this city of audacious dreams and shattered nightmares. He knew that beneath the glitter and the meticulously constructed facade, a darker, more sinister story was waiting to be unveiled. And Dominic, the charming, enigmatic stranger, was undoubtedly at its cold, calculating heart. The investigation stretched into the early hours of the morning, each passing minute amplifying the crushing sense of urgency. The desert wind, usually a comforting, dry whisper, now carried an ominous, chilling sigh. Corbin knew that in cases like this, the first 24 hours were critical, often determining the outcome between hope and despair. He dispatched officers to scour the city, to interview anyone who might have seen Cassie in her final known hours, their weary faces reflecting the growing concern. Security footage from the casino's labyrinthine corridors provided a tantalizing, yet frustrating, glimpse. It showed Cassie leaving the Stardust, her dazzling stage costume replaced by a simple, elegant black dress, a small designer clutch bag tucked under her arm. She looked radiant, as always, yet a subtle tension seemed to cling to her, a barely perceptible tremor in her confident stride. She was meeting someone. The question clawing at Corbin's mind was, who and what unspeakable events had transpired after she stepped out into the neon-drenched night? Corbin replayed the footage countless times, a tireless loop of the final moments. He scrutinized every pixel, every shadow, searching for any anomaly, any subtle sign that could provide a lead, a flicker of truth. He noticed a fleeting, almost imperceptible glance Cassie cast over her shoulder, a flicker of apprehension, a shadow of fear in her usually fearless eyes. Was she being followed? Or was it simply the usual caution of a woman navigating the treacherous, neon-lit streets of Vegas alone after dark? The footage then showed her stepping into a sleek, dark sedan, its tinted windows obscuring the driver's identity. The car sped off into the night, disappearing into the endless, shimmering tapestry of city lights. This was the last confirmed sighting of Cassandra Monroe. The trail, for now, had gone terrifyingly cold, leaving Corbin with a gnawing sense of dread and a growing, chilling conviction that Cassie's disappearance was not a choice, but an act. An act orchestrated by the charming, enigmatic, and now profoundly suspicious Dominic. The glitter of Vegas, it seemed, had concealed a terrible secret, and Miles Corbin was determined to expose it, no matter how deeply it was buried, no matter how high the cost. The disappearance of Cassie Monroe cast a long, ominous shadow over the Stardust Casino. The show still went on, a testament to Vegas's unyielding demand for spectacle, but the laughter felt thinner, the applause less enthusiastic. Detective Corbin, however, was impervious to the city's need for illusion. His focus was laser-sharp, zeroing in on the man who had become the epicenter of his investigation, Dominic Bellwether. Dominic was everything the Showgirls had described and more. When Corbin finally tracked him down at a high-stakes poker game in a discreet, upscale lounge, the man exuded an almost magnetic charm. He was effortlessly stylish, his dark suit perfectly tailored, his smile both captivating and subtly manipulative. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held an intelligent glint, but also a guardedness that Corbin immediately recognized. Dominic, upon seeing the detective, offered a smooth, almost practiced, expression of concern for Cassie. "Cassandra? She's gone? That's impossible. We were so happy." His voice was a velvety baritone, perfectly modulated to convey sincerity. But Corbin, a connoisseur of deception, felt an instant prickle of distrust. Dominic's alibi was meticulously constructed, almost too perfect. He claimed he had been out of town on a business trip, a vague venture into international investments, and had only just returned. He provided flight details, hotel receipts, and even a contact number for a supposed business associate in Miami. Corbin, however, had learned long ago that in Vegas, the most elaborate illusions were often the ones closest to the truth. He ordered a deep dive into Dominic's background, an exercise that began to unravel a disturbing pattern. Dominic Bellwether, it turned out, was not his real name. His birth certificate listed him as David Miller, a name linked to a string of financial scams across the country, elaborate Ponzi schemes, fraudulent real estate deals, and even a few instances of identity theft. He was a chameleon, adapting his persona to fit his latest mark. His charm was his weapon. His good looks a gilded cage for his victims. Women, often successful and independent, were drawn to him, only to find themselves ensnared in his web of deceit, their finances drained, their hearts broken. Cassie, with her burgeoning income and dreams of a life beyond the stage, had been his latest and potentially most lucrative target. As Corbin's team dug deeper, they discovered that Dominic had recently coerced Cassie into investing a significant portion of her savings money she had painstakingly accumulated over years of grueling performances into a nebulous opportunity that promised astronomical returns. The investment, of course, was a phantom, designed solely to siphon her money into Dominic's offshore accounts. The unsent email from Cassie to Tanya now made chilling sense. Cassie had begun to see through the illusion, to suspect the truth behind Dominic's glittering promises. Corbin re-interviewed Tanya, presenting her with the cold, hard facts of Dominic's past. Tanya's face, already pale with worry, crumpled in despair. "She told me she was going to confront him," Tanya whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She said she couldn't let him do this to her. She was meeting him after the show that night to get her money back, or at least to break things off." The pieces began to click into place, forming a grim mosaic. Cassie hadn't just vanished. She had been silenced. The last known sighting of Cassie stepping into the dark sedan took on a new, sinister light. Corbin's team identified the car through careful cross-referencing of security footage from surrounding businesses. It was a rental, booked under a false name, but the surveillance caught a fleeting glimpse of the driver's profile, unmistakably Dominic's. The alibi, so carefully constructed, began to crumble under the weight of evidence. Dominic had returned to Vegas much earlier than he claimed, just in time to meet Cassie. Corbin brought Dominic in for further questioning. The charmer's facade remained intact, but a subtle tension, a flicker of something desperate, began to show around his eyes. He maintained his innocence, denying any involvement in Cassie's disappearance, feigning outrage at the accusations. But Corbin, armed with the knowledge of his true identity and the mounting evidence, pressed harder, chipping away at the carefully built lies. "We know about David Miller, Dominic," Corbin stated, his voice calm but firm. "We know about the money. We know Cassie was on to you." A flicker of genuine fear finally crossed Dominic's face, quickly masked by a sneer. "Cassie was a demanding woman," he retorted, attempting to regain control. "High maintenance. Maybe she just ran off. She had a lot of secrets." He tried to deflect, to sow seeds of doubt about Cassie's character, a tactic Corbin recognized as typical for manipulative predators. But it was too late. The charm was wearing thin. The betrayal, once hidden behind a dazzling smile, was now exposed, raw and ugly. Corbin ended the interrogation, knowing he didn't have enough to hold Dominic yet, but the net was closing. He had cracked the charmer's carefully crafted persona. Now, the hunt for Cassie's whereabouts intensified, fueled by the grim realization that she was likely a victim of Dominic's ruthless greed. The bright lights of Vegas seemed to mock the darkness that had consumed one of its most luminous stars. The city of illusion had birthed a deadly betrayal, and Corbin was determined to uncover the full, devastating truth, no matter the cost. The pressure on Detective Corbin intensified with each passing hour. The media, scenting a high-profile scandal, descended upon the stardust, turning Cassie's disappearance into a sensationalized tragedy. Mr. Harrison, the producer, now looked like a man haunted, his meticulous composure shattered by the relentless barrage of questions. Corbin, however, remained focused, impervious to the external chaos. His gaze was fixed on Dominic, now the prime suspect in a full-blown murder investigation. Dominic, released due to insufficient evidence for an arrest, had predictably vanished from his usual haunts. But Corbin had anticipated this. He had placed a tail on Dominic immediately after the last interrogation, knowing that cornered predators often make mistakes. The surveillance team, a mix of seasoned veterans and eager rookies, diligently followed Dominic's convoluted movements across the city. He wasn't hiding. He was performing, trying to erase his tracks, meeting with shady characters in dimly lit bars, making frantic, hushed phone calls from burner phones. The financial investigation into Dominic's past revealed a staggering network of shell companies and offshore accounts, meticulously designed to launder money and evade detection. Cassie's investment had indeed been siphoned into one of these accounts, effectively disappearing without a trace. It became clear that Dominic hadn't just intended to swindle Cassie. He intended to leave her with nothing, her dreams shattered along with her finances. Meanwhile, forensic teams meticulously scoured Cassie's dressing room and apartment, searching for any overlooked detail. They found microscopic traces of a rare, high-end cologne, a scent distinctive to Dominic, on a discarded silk scarf in Cassie's apartment, suggesting he had been there recently, perhaps even on the night of her disappearance. This, combined with the security footage of the rental car and the increasingly damning financial evidence, began to paint a picture of premeditated foul play. Corbin focused on the how and where. Dominic's car, the dark sedan, was eventually located in a long-term parking garage at the edge of the city, wiped clean of fingerprints, a testament to Dominic's meticulous nature. However, a minute shard of a crimson sequin, matching Cassie's stage costume, was found wedged deep within the passenger seat's upholstery. It was a tiny, glittering piece of evidence, but it spoke volumes. Cassie had been in that car on that fateful night. The interrogation of Dominic's business associate in Miami, a grizzled con artist named Slick Sammy, revealed another layer of Dominic's depravity. Sammy, a former associate of David Miller, confessed under pressure that Dominic had a safe house, a remote, forgotten cabin in the desolate Nevada desert, a place he used for cooling off after particularly risky scams. Sammy also revealed Dominic's method of disposal: a deep, abandoned mine shaft, a relic of Nevada's mining past, known only to a select few. The location, deliberately chosen for its isolation and anonymity, sent a shiver down Corbin's spine. Armed with this critical information, Corbin mobilized a search party. The sun beat down mercilessly on the vast, unforgiving desert, its silence a stark contrast to the cacophony of Vegas. The terrain was brutal, dotted with cacti and ancient, sun-baked rocks. After hours of relentless searching, guided by Sammy's vague directions and advanced GPS coordinates, they found it. A dilapidated, forgotten cabin, barely more than a shack, nestled in a secluded canyon. The cabin was empty, but the air inside still carried a faint, disturbing odor. Forensic investigators found traces of blood, expertly cleaned but still detectable, indicating a struggle. A single, broken earring, a delicate silver piece that Cassie always wore, lay hidden beneath a loose floorboard. The evidence was irrefutable. Cassie had been here. Her life, it seemed, had tragically ended in this remote, desolate place, far from the dazzling lights she had once commanded. The team then moved to the abandoned mine shaft, its entrance a gaping maw in the earth, shrouded in shadows. The descent was treacherous, the air thick with dust and the metallic scent of old iron. As they reached the bottom, their flashlights cut through the absolute darkness, revealing a sight that brought a grim finality to Corbin's investigation. Cassie's body was found there, wrapped in a tarp, discarded like refuse. The vibrant showgirl, whose smile had once lit up the stardust, lay still, a victim of a charmer's deadly betrayal. The discovery sent shockwaves through the stardust and across the city. The illusion had shattered, revealing the grim reality beneath. Dominic's carefully constructed world of lies and deceit began to unravel completely. Corbin now had the evidence, the location, and the grim confirmation of Cassie's fate. He issued an immediate warrant for Dominic's arrest, knowing that the charmer, once so untouchable, was finally cornered. The unveiling was complete, revealing the full horror of a dream turned nightmare, a life extinguished by the cold, calculating greed of a man whose charm was nothing more than a deadly facade. The news of Cassie Monroe's tragic discovery rippled through Las Vegas like a shockwave, tearing through the city's glossy facade. The stardust was draped in a somber pallor, the vibrant neon lights now seeming to mourn rather than celebrate. Tanya, heartbroken and consumed by guilt, became a vocal advocate for justice, her grief a powerful counterpoint to the city's usual indifference. Detective Corbin, fueled by a grim determination, launched an all-out manhunt for Dominic. Dominic, however, was a slippery foe. He had anticipated the net closing in and had begun his escape plan days ago. His network of burner phones went silent. His usual haunts yielded nothing. He was a master of disappearing acts, honed through years of evading the law. Corbin, drawing on every resource at his disposal, put out an APB across state lines, warning law enforcement about the dangerous, manipulative fugitive. He knew Dominic wouldn't stay in one place, that he would be trying to cross borders, to melt back into the anonymity he craved. The manhunt became a tense, high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Corbin's team meticulously tracked Dominic's last known movements. They discovered he had been withdrawing large sums of cash from various ATMs, always under the cover of night, always using different disguises: a baseball cap, dark glasses, a fake beard. He was trying to finance his escape, probably to a country without extradition treaties, where his past as David Miller could truly disappear. A crucial break came from an unexpected source: a vigilant gas station attendant in a remote Arizona town. The attendant, having seen Dominic's face on a news report, recognized him despite his crude disguise. He discreetly noted the license plate of Dominic's rented, nondescript car and called the police. The information was immediately relayed to Corbin, who mobilized a tactical unit. The pursuit was short but intense. Dominic, realizing he was cornered, attempted a desperate escape, speeding through the desert highway. The chase culminated in a dramatic standoff on a desolate stretch of road, miles from any civilization. Surrounded by armed officers, his escape route blocked, Dominic finally surrendered, his characteristic charm replaced by a look of wild, cornered desperation. The charmer's carefully constructed world had finally crumbled. Back in a sterile interrogation room, Dominic sat across from Corbin, stripped of his expensive clothes and his air of superiority. He remained defiant at first, clinging to his practiced lies, denying everything, even with the overwhelming evidence stacked against him. He tried to project an air of victimhood, to blame Cassie, to paint her as unstable and demanding. But Corbin was relentless. He laid out the evidence: the financial records, the surveillance footage, the forensics from the cabin, the discovery of Cassie's body in the mine shaft, the broken earring. Each piece was a hammer blow against Dominic's crumbling defenses. Corbin spoke not just of the facts, but of Cassie's dreams, her vibrant life, the trust she had placed in him. He described the pain and devastation left in her wake, the shattered lives of her friends and family. He chipped away at Dominic's hardened exterior, finding the tiny crack of humanity buried deep beneath layers of deceit and self-preservation. Finally, after hours of intense psychological pressure, the dam broke. Dominic, exhausted and defeated, began to speak, his voice hoarse, devoid of its usual captivating quality. He confessed, his words a torrent of self-pity and cold, calculated admission. He admitted to meeting Cassie after the show, to picking her up in the rental car. He admitted to the heated argument that had ensued when Cassie confronted him about her money, about her growing suspicions. "She was going to expose me," Dominic muttered, his eyes fixed on the table, unable to meet Corbin's gaze. "She threatened to go to the police. She called me a fraud, a parasite." His voice was low, devoid of remorse. He described how the argument had escalated, how he had driven her to the remote cabin, thinking he could talk sense into her. But Cassie, furious and betrayed, had fought back. In a moment of panicked rage, he had silenced her, not intending to kill her, he claimed, but only to shut her up. He then recounted the chilling details of how he had disposed of her body, using the forgotten mine shaft, believing she would never be found. The confession was a chilling exposé of a man consumed by greed and a desperate need to maintain his illusion. He spoke of Cassie's trust as a weakness, her love as a commodity. The charm, it turned out, was merely a tool, a means to an end. There was no love, no genuine affection, only a calculating predator preying on vulnerability. As Dominic signed the confession, the weight of the investigation, the long hours, the grim discoveries, seemed to lift slightly from Corbin's shoulders. Justice, though bittersweet, was within reach. Cassie's voice, silenced so brutally, would finally be heard, her story told not by the whispers of a charmer, but by the undeniable truth. The glitter of Vegas had hidden a monstrous betrayal, but the dedicated work of a weary detective had finally brought it into the unforgiving light. The trial of Dominic Bellwether, a.k.a. David Miller, became a national sensation. The story of the beautiful Vegas showgirl, Cassandra Monroe, and her charming, murderous betrayer dominated headlines. The city of Las Vegas, often perceived as a place where consequences were fleeting, watched intently as justice slowly, deliberately, unfolded. Detective Corbin, now a recognized figure, sat in the courtroom, a silent observer to the culmination of his relentless work. The prosecution, armed with Corbin's meticulous investigation, presented an unassailable case. The financial records, the surveillance footage, the forensic evidence from the cabin and the mine shaft, and finally, Dominic's chilling confession, painted a damning picture. Tanya, tearful yet resolute, testified about Cassie's dreams, her growing suspicion of Dominic, and her desperate, unsent email. Her testimony brought a raw, emotional dimension to the cold facts, reminding everyone in the courtroom of the vibrant life that had been so cruelly extinguished. Dominic, attempting to regain some semblance of his former charm, tried to portray himself as a victim of circumstances, a man driven to desperation by a demanding woman. He even attempted to recant parts of his confession, claiming coercion. But his efforts were futile. The carefully constructed web of lies had been irrevocably torn apart, exposing the manipulative, ruthless individual beneath. The jury, unswayed by his belated attempts at charm, saw through the act. After weeks of testimony, the verdict was swift and unanimous. Guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in a collective gasp, followed by a wave of relief. Dominic, the once charming predator, stood stoic, his face devoid of emotion, as the judge handed down a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The charmer's deadly bet had finally caught up with him, and he would spend the rest of his days stripped of his freedom, his illusions, and his ability to ensnare others. In the aftermath of the trial, the Stardust Casino held a memorial service for Cassandra Monroe. It was a stark contrast to the usual glittering extravaganzas. The stage, where Cassie had once shone so brightly, was adorned with white roses and candles. Tanya, now the lead showgirl, delivered a heartfelt eulogy, honoring Cassie's memory, her talent, and her spirit. She spoke of the dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of beauty and illusion, a cautionary tale for all who sought their dreams in the dazzling, yet often perilous, world of Las Vegas. The celestial siren show continued, but with a new depth, a somber reminder of the star they had lost. Detective Corbin, his job done, found a quiet satisfaction in the outcome. He knew that the glitter of Vegas would continue to attract both dreamers and predators. But he also knew that beneath the surface, there were those like him, dedicated to uncovering the truth, to bringing light to the darkest corners. Cassie's case, while tragic, became a testament to the fact that even in a city built on illusion, justice could still prevail. Years passed. The Stardust Casino, like many old Vegas establishments, eventually closed its doors, making way for new, even grander resorts. The physical landmarks changed, but the story of Cassie Monroe, the showgirl whose vibrant life was tragically cut short by a charmer's deadly betrayal, became a part of Vegas lore. It served as a stark reminder that behind the dazzling lights, the allure of quick riches, and the promises of a charmed life, there could be a chilling darkness. Corbin continued his work, his weary eyes still scanning the faces in the crowd, always searching for the truth hidden beneath the carefully constructed facades. He knew that while the stages would be reset and new stars would rise, the lessons learned from Cassie's fate would endure. Her legacy wasn't just in the shows she performed or the dreams she chased, but in the truth that was finally uncovered, a truth that pierced through the glitter and exposed the deadly betrayal that had once been hidden behind a charmer's smile. And in the heart of Las Vegas, a city perpetually reinventing itself, the memory of Cassie Monroe remained, a silent, powerful warning that not all that glitters is gold, and sometimes, the most charming smiles hide the darkest intentions.